This is what $10 looked like in 2001. Iffy title, plain Jane packaging, a seemingly sterile, soulless look, and very little personality. Basically everything you'd expect for a tenner, right? No small wonder that Agetec's A1 series of games, which, according to the back, is distributed exclusively by Tomo, for the original PlayStation not only sold fairly badly, but can still be obtained brand new, even 10 years later, for mere pocket change. But, if you look past the ultra-budget price point and laughable branding, you might just find quite the worthwhile game. Indeed, that is what shooter Starfighter Sanvein is. But if you're looking for typical shmup conventions here, you'll be in for a surprise. This just isn't your typical shoot-'em-up. This arena-based shooter is set up with many microstages with an emphasis on time conservation. To see what I mean, let's take a look at the first stage. So then, after selecting my body and weapon types, I'll be starting on a single hex on a larger as-yet unexplored hex grid. Entering this panel, I'm met by a number of adversaries that need to be dealt with. I have full range movement in the arena that I've entered, and I can maneuver through attacks with relative ease. It takes a bit of getting used to since this title came before the renaissance of dual-stick shooters like Geometry Wars. I only have base firepower as well. You'll also notice that I have a timer in the corner that's counting down at all times. This is what's keeping me in the game. At 0, it's game over. Now that this panel is cleared, I can choose which panel to progress to. You'll notice here that for each adjoining cleared panel, my attack power goes up 1 level. This means that my weapons will max out at level 6. Since the bosses in this game can be formidable if I don't have the power to take them on, ideally I'd like to surround the boss panels with clear panels to get the highest power possible. Since if I'm hit by enemy fire, my timer will decrease by 90 units. And since the only way to gain time is to defeat the bosses in each stage, the faster the better, and to defeat a boss will get you 140 extend time units. This mechanic demonstrates Sanvein's very challenging and addictive risk-reward system. Do you take more time to clear as many panels as possible for overwhelming power, or do you squeak by and nail the bosses with just enough power to shave precious units from your overall time? When the boss panels are taken care of, the stage boss will then emerge. The power level I had in the panel before this fight carries over as well, so however you approach this boss in terms of cleared panels can determine how difficult the battle will be. Your special weapons will definitely help. The faster you clear the stage, the better your score at the end of the stage, which is delightfully clever and, as is the case with me, keeps the player engaged, on their toes, and coming back for more. That alone is good enough to justify $10 in 2001's money. But it gets better. The best shooters allow decent choice in your ship, and Sanvein is very accommodating, with 3 body types that allow for different movement and main shots, and an additional 3 parts that offer special attacks, all of which that can be mixed and matched. There's a lot of choice for players to experiment with. And with 5 stages, each with unique maps, layouts, and bosses, going for the highest 1cc score without running out of time is not only interesting, but a fair length when working out the fastest way to do so. So, Sanvein can walk the walk, even though its playstyle is a bit different than what we're used to seeing here. So, can it also talk the talk? Well, yes and no. The visual stylings of the game are very conceptual in nature, and in tune with the likes of Rez, with a clash of garbled techno-junk and vector-style graphics. The 3D engine is quite solid overall, and even though there is some slowdown, it's far from crippling. However, the overall design of the enemies and even your ship is, well, lacking. This is what I meant earlier by soulless. The design is more or less the same throughout the game, with only a small variety of enemy designs, none of which really stand out. Some of the bosses are pretty cool, but the rest are more or less forgettable, and unlike Rez, really lacks any sort of personality. So as I said before, it makes for a very sterile experience visually. The sound design is neat though. You'll hear radio chatter reacting in real time to what's going on in the game, including timer countdowns both in-game and at the continue screen. Some of the music is quite catchy as well. However, once you get into the groove and hit your stride time-wise, there's very little time to admire it all. The sound effects are fairly stock as well, but they do their job. Thankfully, if you can achieve a high enough score, you can unlock all kinds of nifty extras, such as the soundtrack, which really is the only way to enjoy the few tunes worth listening to, and the ability to change the reverb in the game. You can also unlock tweaks such as the explosion colors, time extensions, and starting time, provided you can score high enough in the game. This kind of unlockable content encourages better playthroughs without continuing, as typically you can only unlock these extras by making it very far into the game on your original clock counter. It's a fairly uncommon, if not entirely original approach to unlockables, if a bit easy for seasoned shooter vets. So with all that said, just how does Starfighter Sanvein stack up anyway? Let's take a look. Much like Iridian 2 last year, Starfighter Sanvein took me completely by surprise. In fact, I only recently stumbled upon this game at a pawn shop for $4. So not only is it fairly decent for a great price, but I had no idea it existed until I actually found it. On the control front, it is a bit on the slippery side, but it's totally manageable once you get the hang of it. Each of the three body types also controls slightly different from the other, so if one body doesn't match your playstyle, you have other choices. In terms of length, it can be over fairly quickly depending how fast you decide to go through it, but it will take you a while to figure out the fastest route through the game. On the challenge front, Sanvein succeeds with a very fun, challenging system of time management, which at times is really hard to recover in, since you get severely docked if you get hit. The visuals and sound are both solid, however they're nothing special in their own right. On the one hand, the graphics do have a very nifty look about them, but in the end, it lacks any real personality. The stage segments are over far too fast as well for you to appreciate much of the music. But then again, there are only very few tracks that are worth listening to. The radio chatter is a nice touch. As for ingenuity, I don't think there's any other game out there that plays much like this, save maybe for Warning Forever on PC. But even then, it lacks the depth that the structure of this game has. As such, the ingenuity scores very high. Now, the best part about this game is that it's dirt friggin' cheap. You can get a copy for as little as $2 at auction, and brand new copies go for as little as $5. Given that it's so fun to play, and given that it keeps bringing me back for more, I'd recommend this game for just about anybody. Best of all, you can play it on your PS3. And no, not on the PSN either. Long live 32-bit.